Then I built the wheelbarrow. I built the wheelbarrow. Motor goes on the front. It still flies, by the way. I had to pull the motor off because I was running out of motors for the other planes. But after a couple of attempts, I had the motor sticking up on a pod. So it was about 3 inches, 4 inches above. And when we hand launched it, we think, a bunch of us get together, and I listen to everybody's opinion and work it all out. We think from the launch it was just pulling it down. So I ended up putting the motor right directly here. It won't take off because the pop would hit the ground. And the thing flies really kind of great. I mean, it's not something you fly every day, but it does work. Put elevons on it. Most everything I have has elevons on it. And it just looks crazy in the sky. It looks like a wheelbarrow. So, and I got this idea from going out to the field, our orange wheelbarrow. Out at the field, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think I can make that thing fly. So, that's where this came from. And most of these I'm using the little tiny electric motor, thanks to Bernie. Where are you, Bernie? Bernie's supplied me with a few electric motors, servos, receivers, being a transmitter. So we've kind of teamed up, and he sees to it that I get my projects done and up to the field. But they're just a little cheap motor, cheap receivers. What else we have here? I built a giant foamy, a DW foamy. I bought one from Aaron, by the way. What are they? 100 and a quarter for a foamy, ready to fly. You just put your battery in it and go. And they're great. They're covered. They're all put together real well. So I bought one of his foamies, and I was looking at that. I'm like, God, that'd be a great project to make huge, exactly like a giant foamy. So what I did was I made it 1.5 times larger than what it is. So it ended up being 8-foot wingspan. And I made it out of the 1-inch foam. And you get this foam at Home Depot or Lowe's. There's a sample right there. That's the 1-inch foam. It's just super light foam. And it's only $10 a 4x8 sheet. So I made a bunch of different projects out of this. It flew electric, but it was no powerhouse. It was like a dead lighter. It was a big slug, but it was impressive. It was huge. And yeah, that's what I hear. The landing gear I made out of plastic coat hanger. It worked a couple of times, but it's kind of one of those things where it's not likely going to last very long. So anyways, I got that one. The turtle. Here's the turtle. And I got this from Bernie. Bernie made a built-up, what we call as a turtle. I'm not sure if that's the name he gave it or if that's the name that somebody else gave it. But I went to his house. He's finishing up his turtle that's all built up. It's hollow inside. It's foam, Depron. So I figured, and we were discussing center of gravity. That's probably one of the most critical things about any of these projects. Finding out where the center of gravity is. Because you have nothing to really go by in most cases. There's a rule of thumb, but that's about all you got to go by. So I went home after leaving his house, and he gave me a little drawing of it. So I kind of guesstimated how big his was. So I was going to make just a little glider one, a full-size glider one, to find out where the CG should be. So just kind of throw it in the yard. But I put it together and I thought, you know what? It was only like an hour or so. I figured I may as well put a radio in it and fly it. So I built this in a day. And I built it one day and took it over to Bernie's house and flew it in his front yard. This is a poster board. It's $1 at the dollar store for a 20 by 30 sheet, I believe.
Paper cover?
Pardon me?
Paper
cover, yeah. I don't really recommend it because once it crinkles, it's done. It's not repairable. It's kind of a...
And it's just double, that's double thickness.
Yeah, this is double thickness because I wanted to use up my pieces to make it stronger.
And that made it strong.
So I just joined the pieces that I had to make a full sheet. Well, this thing flew like a bandit. I mean, it all bananas. It's got one of the little mega jet engines on it. He flew it in his front yard, and I was like, wow. And then took it out to the field, and it was really moving, because the day we flew it was like 20, 30 mile an hour winds. But it, like I say, it turned out to be quite a flyer. It's fast. I wanted to point out one thing too. We burned up 2 motors. And Bernie says, on the second one, after we burned, I'm going out, climbing out, and Bruce says, it's smoking. I didn't put a smoker on it. It had a nice trail of smoke, and I thought, oh, the batteries. So we got it back down, and it turned out the motor, this one's burned up. And I'm glad you turned it. But it turned out I burned the motor. So we put the second one on it, and Bernie says, I didn't want to burn it up. He said, just pull the throttle back. Well, you know how hard it is to just hold the throttle back? It ain't going to happen. So I'm pulling the throttle back, and then I forget I'm going full throttle, so I'm flying around. I fried that motor. So next time I fly it, we're going to put a limiter on it, or something to keep it from, I think you can adjust it so it doesn't go full throttle. And I hope that works. But anyways, simple project. It flies great. It's just a knock around thing.
How about duck and arrow?
Yeah.
Smoke is cool.
Oh, yeah.
Keep the magic smoke, make it
No, I mean,
They want to cool the
put an air duct,
I
because
mean,
it's completely blind.
I guess so. But
Put an ammeter on it, quick overamp.
exactly.
Drop the rod or.
What do you do in the spare time?
Actually, I'm glad you asked. I want you all to know I gave up karaoke to be here tonight.
And it was $100 concert?
That's right. Yeah. So, one of the interesting things that I did for a job, and it was only a weekend.
1 weekend.
At the Anaheim Convention Center, they had a electronics convention. And I had these people call me up from a company and say, hey, we want to know if you'll fly a plane around our gorilla, like King Kong. Sure. Well, I flew off the Sheraton parking lot, and on the other hotel, the Anaheim Hotel or whatever, they had one of those big gorillas just floating there. Well, I flew around it for their advertisement. And that was quite interesting. I had to land on the parking lot up above the Sheraton. So, let me see what else I got to show you here. This was my latest project.
This is sick.
This is the flying toilet. It flies great. It flies kind of weird. Another thing, I was looking at the toilet and I'm like, I can make that thing fly. So,
That makes the tightest loops.
yeah, it is a weird flying thing. When I go to turn, when I say I'm going to make a right turn, it kicks over just fine, and it stays like that. It's like it wants to fly on this swing, or this thing, the vertical fin. And I've got to actually fight it to get it back level again. It flies great upside down. It does. I mean, hands off, it's floating. But it does tight loops. It pretty much has to have power, at least low throttle, to get it down and land it. And basically it lands, it just kind of falls over. I did break it. I went to do a loop when we were trying different things with it. Went to do a loop, the motor quit on the downside. The magnets jammed the motor because I wasn't sure of that motor, but it ended up being the magnets were jamming the motor. I come down, I pull the throttle back, I got it running again, and just cleared the ground, and then kind of tip stalled it, and I cracked it right here. But it's ready to go again. But it definitely looks great in the air. Like I say, if you go on the website, whatnextjoe, you'll see the videos of all these things flying.
I subscribe. I have a subscription. Great entertainment.
I feel my projects, I make a prototype, a sample, to see if it'll fly. So I get something and try it and see if it'll float. So then like I said, that kind of has this general idea of the toilet. So then to get an idea how I was gonna build it, I built another mock-up model. And this is basically how I scaled it up to do the other. And I made it full size. So if anybody needs